Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. Ryan and I are here to talk about Kirk Cousins, whether there's a true culture shift here in Minnesota, Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter maybe being one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL, and a Caleb Evans in his strong debut filling in for Cam Dantzler on Sunday. So grab your Lake Monster beer and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings. Skol!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, fresh off another comeback victory by quarterback one, Kirk Cousins. I'm not even going to say the Vikings, though it probably should be stated that it's the whole team. But Kirk Cousins, man, let's just get right into it. Actually, before we get into it, shout out to both of our sponsors. First one being That's Badass Wood Art. If you're here and you need gift ideas for this winter, head on over to that'sbadasswoodart.com. You can use our promo code CT Pocket. I always mess it up. I want to say CTP Pocket, but it's CT Pocket for 20% off any one item. And additionally, you can head on over to Lake Monster Brewing in St. Paul, Minnesota for some fantastic beer into the winter months. So shout out to both of those sponsors. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins right off the bat. There's something different about him this year. And we'll get to the culture aspect a little bit, but man, he delivered some key throws again on Sunday to help us win the game. What are your thoughts, Ryan, on Kirk Cousins and this new person that we see out there? Shirtless, by the way. Kirko.
Yeah. No, and it's great to see that he's playing with some confidence right now. I'm not
Look at
100%
that.
sure that it's a new Kirk Cousins per se. I think he's still the same old Kirk, but the team in themselves are the ones that are building this persona of Kirko and the chains and Kirk chains and all that. Which honestly, if you guys haven't been on Twitter, you got to get on Twitter for the memes. Just the amount of different pictures that are going up with Kirk in the Coles shirt, and then Kirk with the no shirt and chains, and then like what people will say about it. It's so hilarious. But anyway, yeah, I'm not sure we're seeing a new Kirk Cousins per se. We're just seeing a team that is learning how to finish. Kirk is still playing the same old Kirk game, right? I mean, he's being calculated in his moves. I mean, actually, a lot of people were really upset about that interception at the end of the half. I wasn't. He took a shot one-on-one with his best player, and
Yeah.
kind of a fluky deal where it bounced up and landed in the other defender's hands. But overall, that was a calculated move that I think you're giving your guy a 50-50 chance to win. And usually,
Let's stay on that for a second.
yeah,
Let's stay on that part for a second, because in the past we've knocked Kirk Cousins a little bit for not trusting his receivers and
yeah.
in not giving his playmakers, I mean, whether it was Diggs, Thielen, and now Jefferson, not giving his playmakers true opportunities to make a play on the ball. We've seen it consecutive weeks now. Are you afraid that because of that interception that he might try and scale back, or do you think that he's really kind of shifted mentally to being able to trust his receivers more?
I think he has. I mean, and he's not going to put the ball in harm's way per se. He didn't in that play. It was a fluke that
Mm-hmm.
it happened to bounce out. I mean, the defender made a play. Well, actually, JJ kind of missed the catch. I mean, I think it hit his chest and bounced off. But the defender made a play, made him not being able to catch it, and their defender happened to just bounce the right way where they were able to get to it. So
Yeah.
it's a calculated move. I don't think that was him being stupidly aggressive. That wasn't him. I mean, who was Heineke was being stupid aggressive on that touchdown to Samuel. That was triple coverage. He threw it up there. Would have been intercepted without the ref getting in the way there.
Yes.
So that's stupid aggressive. Kirk's being calculated. I don't think that result is going to change his mindset at all. He's going to take those shots when he sees that one-on-one with your best player and your best 50-50 baller. Yeah, so I was happy to see that. So going back to the original question, I don't think we have a new Kirk Cousins. I just think that we have a Kirk Cousins that's creating, that is putting his team in positions to win. The team itself, not just Kirk, but everyone is learning how to win together. Whether it's
Yeah.
defense getting the key interception, whether it's Greg Joseph kicking the game-winning field goal that we missed last year in Arizona. We're finding ways to win, and then it just so happens that because we're winning and because we have a fun culture of O'Connell allowing everyone to be themselves and be fun and have fun and very passionate post-game speeches and very lively interactions between the players, that you're seeing a more fun side of Kirk because he's getting taken out of his comfort zone to have a little
Mm-hmm.
fun, because this is the first time in his whole career that he's like legitimately winning back to back to back. Like he just hasn't done this really. So you're seeing a team that believes in him, and they're showing him love by making him do goofy stuff like put on chains.
Do do we dare call him clutch? Are you ready to call Kirk Cousins clutch?
I mean, we haven't
Dave
really
Dave
done it in a big
Dave's
game
shaking
yet,
his head
so
no. He says no way.
when
I don't.
stakes are on the line, he has to do it when the stakes are on the line. He has done it. He did it against New Orleans back in
Yeah.
2019, was it? So I mean, he's shown up in big games, and again, there's been a narrative about Kirk that he can't play well in big games, and rightfully so, because traditionally we haven't won those primetime games with him, either us or Washington. But again, it's a team game. I probably was too hard on him in the past, because you can always put your team in a better position where it doesn't have to be a one-score game at the end, and he's still putting us in those positions. So my criticism last year is still the same criticism really this year. We're not blowing teams out, or we're not overpowering on offense,
Mm-hmm.
but we're winning.
Yeah.
So the mindset's just different.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the people who are here in the chat. Appreciate the comments. Keep them coming. We'll try to address them as the show goes on. And speaking of which, we have a comment here from Aaron asking if we feel confident with him under pressure. You talked about him needing to put up in big pressure moments. Do you feel confident with what you've seen this year for him to do something like that?
Well, when you say pressure, are we talking like the like mythical pressure that comes from a big game, or are we talking legitimate pressure like defenders coming in at you?
Yeah, I mean both, right? Let's scenario for both.
Well, if we look at statistics, he's one of the worst in the league against pressure.
Yeah.
And I don't know the specific numbers. I was listening to a different podcast the other day that was telling the specific numbers around that. I think it was Score North was talking
Yeah.
about it. And so yes, he unfortunately he is one of the worst against pressure. But that was prior to last week's game, and he
Mm-hmm.
was getting rocked this last game, and he you know for 3 quarters or about 2.5 quarters, he wasn't putting up good numbers. But when it counted, when the stakes were on the line, he was. I mean, that big pass to JJ is one that comes to mind, where he stood in the pocket, threw that ball, got absolutely lit up. You could tell. I think he said his wind got knocked out of him. um, and he stood there and made the play. So again, when it matters, it seems like he's figuring out a way. I don't know what it is, and was he doing this last year? I think he was. And whether it was a missed kick or whether it was a defense failing us, he was putting us in positions to win, and we're just figuring out a way to do that this year.
Fair enough.
So yes, I
Fair
trust him
enough.
in big moments right now. Right now. I mean, but again, we're
Yeah.
not against the elite teams yet. This week, if Josh Allen plays, and the Cowboys will be the big litmus test for us.
Well, see, I disagree with that. I still
Mm.
think regardless of who plays at quarterback this weekend, it's a good test for our team.
It's a good
Um,
test for our offense versus a really good defense. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and we have seen that before, right?
Yeah.
Throughout this season, I think the Saints, the Eagles,
Saints. Yep.
I think even Washington last week is a pretty good defense. So yeah, my only comment I guess on Kirk is we've asked him year in and year out since he's been here to improve on things, and I've made tweets about this in the past, but we've asked him year in and year out to improve on certain things. He used to be really bad at fumbling in the pocket, just being completely oblivious to pressure. He's improved on that. We used to talk to him about, hey, maybe you could work on extending plays or improvising a little bit more. Well, this year, I mean, shit, you look at his pocket awareness. I mean, he is just sliding out of pressure and delivering really great throws. And although his stats aren't what we've seen from the previous, years he's been here, I feel like they're almost more efficient in how he's moving the ball down the field, which is way more important. I don't need a fantasy quarterback. I need a franchise quarterback. And I think
I like that.
that's kind of what we're getting here this year.
Yeah, I mean, and that was I think one of the people on the broadcast was saying that the other day. I don't know if it was our game or a different game, but it was I'd rather have good stats and win than have great stats and lose. So
hmm
whatever, like even this game, I mean, I know the coach is calling the plays, but they easily could have went in and tried to score and then give them an opportunity to still come back and win. But they played the smart situational football of, let's run it up the middle and not get in and just kind of fall down and put ourselves in a position to drain the clock and kick a field goal.
Yeah. Well, you slightly talked about the culture, and it's something I think that needs to be talked about. This team, and I'll first preface this on I saw something out on Twitter where they were comparing locker room speeches from Mike Zimmer and locker room speeches, post game from Kevin O'Connell. They had them side by side. I'm not here for that. I'm not here to bash the previous regime, um, especially since that was at the end. Give me something from 20, early Zimmer years when that team was fired up and ready to fight for him.
And
And it's
somebody
probably
did do that. Though. I do remember seeing that somebody did bring out a speech from I think our 13th or 12th win of that 2017 season, and it was
yeah,
just night and day difference. Still, I mean, but again, like you can't. It's hard to compare those things, right? Because you're talking about a different person, a different personality. Doesn't mean that Mike
different
Zimmer wasn't an
philosophies.
effective coach. Yeah, exactly. Like Mike Zimmer wasn't a bad coach because he wasn't a rah rah, let's just be happy go lucky and positive all the time. He made a very effective football team for many years. Obviously, his last few years were, um, unfortunate, right? But
Yeah,
he was a very good coach over those first 5 years or whatever it was of his tenure. And I don't think we need to bash him. I don't think anyone is trying to in
hmm
all honesty with those posting of the videos. I think they're more just trying to show the difference in terms of the culture. But like you go look at I think it was the 2017 game that or no 2019 the 2019 season playoff win. That locker room was just as rowdy as it was, in all of these post game speeches we're seeing as it is. So
yeah,
I'm not here, to your point. I'm not here to bash the previous regime or Mike Zimmer.
yeah,
I think that it's just different, and different can be great, and different can be, it doesn't mean that what it was in the past was bad per se.
yeah. I think we can enjoy where this team is at and in the camaraderie that they all seem to have, without putting down other people. And that's just me on my soapbox there, but that's just because I'm a Zim defender. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the culture has clearly shifted, right? And we've seen it since I'm actually working on an article for Daily Norseman about this, but we've seen it since the second Kevin O'Connell walked in here in his introductory press conference. He said these
And
guys are going to
honestly,
know.
before that,
Yeah,
now I'll let you finish your thought, but when
no, you can
Quasey
go.
walked into the building,
Yeah.
When Kwesi walked in the building, you can tell the culture was different. I mean, even just the way he was approaching things just seemed different. But go on with what you were going to say about O'Connell.
Yeah, well, yeah. So to your point, yeah, Kwesi, even the Wilfs, right? We kind of called out their BS, right? These are just buzzwords, right? Collaboration and all the other stuff that went along with it. But Kevin O'Connell, I remember in his introductory press conference, one of the things he said is, I'm going to be as consistent as I can be every single day for these players. And I'm just going to get to know them and, you know, really care for them and just be transparent with them. And I think the players latched onto that, right? And you're seeing it week in and week out. I don't know if you guys follow Eric Kendrick's fiance, or I guess not wife, on Instagram, but she tweeted or posted a picture of Kendrick's texting her after like the flight, right, and be like, these rides homes are so much more fun than they were in the
Yeah.
past. Now, obviously, they were losing, right, so that also plays into it in previous years. But man, I don't know. It's time. It's time to. I mean, Kevin O'Connell could be this coach for a really long time if things continue to progress this way. But I do want to
What I
pose a
really
question to you.
what I was going to say real quick, and you can pose it after that, but is what you can tell about O'Connell. He's very deliberate in the words that he uses
Mm-hmm.
to get his message across. He's not just saying things to say it, and a lot of it might be buzzy or whatever, but you're listening to what he's saying, and there's this like what's the word I'm looking for? There's just this genuine nature to how he delivers
Yeah.
his how he communicates his message that I think it's very easy to buy in, and I think that the players are really resonating with the players very well, to the point where now they are you can tell that everyone's there for the same purpose. Like, again, not to bash the old regime, because that's not what I'm trying to do, but you could tell that there was a little bit of like ghosts last year, right? Zimmer, playing for his job, Spielman playing for his job in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And then there's just a lot of eggshell walking happening. And this year you can really tell that everyone's in for the same reason. Everyone's in for each other. And you
Mm-hmm.
can just really tell that that's a big difference this year.
Yeah, yep, for sure. The question I was going to ask you, though, and I feel like Kevin O'Connell was almost like throwing in subtle comments here or there um, in his press conference, just alluding to the fact that like this isn't like normal in the NFL. Like you're going to have a little bit more losses. I think. How do you think this team is going to handle a potential loss? Do you think that I mean,
Well,
adversity is real? Do you think they
we have
rebound
handled a
well?
loss. We handled a loss that we got our asses whooped too. Like, I mean, that
Yeah,
wasn't like, we're coming off the high of beating a NFC North opponent that has typically had our. I mean, I know we've kind of
things
split
are
over the
different now,
years, but
though.
no, I agree. But what I'm saying is that like you go into that game, you win big, a very emotional win, KOC's first win, dominated the Packers, huge division win, and then you go and just get stomped by the Eagles, right? And stomped is probably not the right word. On the scoreboard, they stomped us, but honestly, I think that game was a little closer than the final score will tell you it was. Um,
I'd agree. Yeah.
but and then you see them literally turn around and just put together this big win streak of stacking wins, and it's not like we're blowing teams out. That would be the main difference, I think, is if we were blowing teams out, I think that it would be much harder to take the next loss, because it's like, hey, we dominate everyone we play. We are battling for our lives in each one of these games, and I think it's just
Mm-hmm.
showing that they can handle the adversity, they can handle the and eventually one of these balls are not going to go our way. We're not going to. I think somebody just posted in the comments here. We're not going to get that all important interception or fumble recovery,
Or
which
penalty.
won't, or penalty or whatever it is, and then we are going to lose a game. But
Yeah.
I think that they're grounded enough as a team to understand that it's a battle every week. Every win is very hard to get to, and that means that every loss is just a step away, right? An inch away. Game of inches type mentality. I think KOC is doing a good job of kind of preaching that message.
Yeah. Um, what's not an easy way to segue into the next one, so we're just going to jump into it anyway. Um, I want to talk about Za'Darius Smith again, who had a phenomenal performance with 9 total pressures last week. A lot of QB hits, a lot of hurries, batted ball, but also Danielle Hunter, who finally was able to secure some sacks for himself this week. 7 total pressures and 2 sacks. And this might be one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL as it stands today. I went through and I pulled a bunch of statistics from Pro Football Focus this week, and Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter are first in pressures as a duo with 79, and they rank second in sacks with 13. Is
Wow.
this team starting to gel now? Like, are these two finally, like, I was worried a little bit early in the season, right, with Danielle Hunter, but looks like maybe he was getting more attention and Smith is getting a feast. And now it's just like he's kind of hitting his stride too once he's started to get familiar with the 3-4 defense. And yeah, any comments on the pass rushing duo?
Yeah, I mean, we knew that I said this preseason, I'm sure it's on one of our shows. Our defense was going to live and die by these two in terms of we have young corners or a very aging corner in one of them, right? Who's also playing relatively well, right? Um, and we knew that they probably wouldn't be able to hold up against the track of all of these wide receivers that we have to go against each and every week, right? It's a tough task, and the only way to really mitigate that risk of that is either have really good corners, which again, our corners are playing relatively well, actually. I think I didn't look at statistics or anything like that, but is going to be that pass rush, and do they have enough time to get open?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously through a couple of those weeks, it was a little slim pickings because they were both kind of hitting their stride after both of them being out for the better part of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And Hunter has been playing really well for a lot of the year, actually. I know the stats weren't coming in, but he's commanding double teams. At one
Yeah.
point in one of the games, I can't remember which one, I think the Dolphins maybe, or he was handling triple team, right? Like you're putting a lot of attention on him, which is why I think Za'Darius Smith was getting a lot of really, really good stats. And then
Yeah.
then Dalvin Tomlinson was playing well. And Harrison Phillips was, kind of, being there and making a difference. And DJ Wanham was making a difference. And Patrick Jones. I mean, we had a lot of these guys who were stepping up. And I think a part of that was because Hunter was commanding a lot of attention. And as everyone else is playing well, you can't give him just that attention all the time. You have to mix it up. And he's able to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
What was really interesting this week, I read on Twitter, it was Mitch Schwartz, who's former All-Pro right tackle for the
Yeah.
Chiefs. He put out a tweet that basically, in essence, I not verbatim here, but it said Danielle Hunter was one of the most interesting tapes to watch and one of the more difficult people to game plan against in the NFL because his moves were so different than any other player that he had to game plan against. Just his motions and that kind of weird hesitation rip move that he does and all of that, you never know what's coming from him. And it made it really
Yep.
difficult to game plan against him. And he's still doing that. I mean, obviously he said that because somebody put out a tweet around, one of the sacks he had this last game. So, it's fun seeing these two go. I think they feed off each other's energy too. Like
Yeah.
they're kind of the new Danielle Everson, right? Everson brought the energy. Za'Darius is bringing the energy. And
Yep.
it's a really fun duo to kind of see finally hit their stride right in the home stretch of the season right now.
Yeah, and when you talked about the defense just as a whole for a second, so we can touch on that. But I do think that there are a lot of players that are starting to kind of, catch their groove when we talk about the shift from Zimmer's defense into the 3-4. Um, Eric Kendricks is another one of those guys that really these past 2, 3, well, I guess 3 weeks ago was the bye, but these past couple weeks, he's really starting to understand what his role is in this defense. Um, he's firing to the ball like I haven't seen in a few years. And I think he's kind of taken a back seat from the tackling standpoint and kind of handing that off to Jordan Hicks. I don't know enough about how roles in a 3-4 defense play out, but maybe Hicks is that guy, whereas Kendricks used to be that in the 4-3. But um, yeah, Kendricks is playing well. Harrison Smith's got 3 picks in
In
3
the
weeks.
second
Like,
week. Yeah.
yeah, that is just insane stuff. But speaking of another player on the defensive side of the ball that had a great game on Sunday, and I'm pretty sure if we went back and looked at receipts here, you were a pretty big fan of this pick from the in the NFL draft. But I'm talking about a Caleb Evans who stepped in and played 40 plus snaps, filling in for Cam Dantzler. Um, and played just about as well as you could ask uh, from
Yeah.
a rookie corner. He was targeted 3 times, allowed 1 reception for -2 yards, and a key pass breakup on 4th and 1 against Terry McLaurin. A couple tackles for losses. He was key in the run game. He was a willing tackler. Now, when you do go look at the tape, I will say, if you're playing against a better quarterback, he might get exploited a little bit more. I saw a few different ones where he wasn't quite sure what his assignment truly was, where they did the little flea flicker and they had the tight end, running up the sideline. He kind of shifted over with Bynum and Chandon Sullivan. And you know what? If you can make those mistakes when you're playing against a guy like Taylor Heineke, so do it there instead of in a bigger game. But otherwise, I mean, about as well as you could ask. Did you I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here, but did you watch Evans in college at all? And if so, like what what were your takeaways then and what were your thoughts about his performance on Sunday?
Yeah, I didn't watch like a ton of Caleb Evans in game at a college level. Now, when doing my couch potato, couch scout analysis of, players. Obviously, I'm not as extensive as a lot of these guys, so please never take my word for it over like a guy like Thor Nystrom or even Tyler Fornes, who's on Climb in the Pocket here. But, they do a lot more work than I do on that. But um, I look at position groups that are of need, right? And one of those this year was corner. So I dove deep into the corner and tried to watch probably 5 rounds worth of corners. And Caleb Evans was somebody that stood out to me. He was somebody that I think he was new to Missouri's system last year or the year before. So he's kind of getting his footing. And I think year one in that system was okay, but he played really well last year in that system. And now, granted, I thought maybe 3rd rounder, 4th rounder, which is where he ended up falling. And I was really surprised with how well he's playing thus far. Like to the point where, like in the preseason, he was playing really well. But you're like, okay, you're going up against twos, you should play well, right? 2s and 3s, you should play well. And then in the spot opportunities he's had, both I forget which game that was, but Cam Dantzler went out for a few plays. And he held his own in that game. And then this week where we got an extended look, and they kind of went after him a little bit, right? And he sure
He
tackler. I mean,
delivered.
again, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was about as perfect of a game as you can ask from a 4th round rookie.
Yeah.
Yes, I was very happy when we drafted him. It was definitely a player that that I had kind of circled as somebody that I'd want us to go after. So yeah, it's fun to kind of see the what I saw on the tape, so to speak, come through on the field there on Sunday.
Well, when you think about like a rookie corner coming into the NFL, it's hard enough to play the cornerback position. And so in you have to have extreme confidence in your ability to play that position too, because you get beat a lot. It's just the nature of the NFL. It's a passing league. But I think when you look at Sunday's game for a Caleb Evans, he did a lot of like things fundamentally right as well. And I think that when you can put together solid plays like that as a rookie, not really get burned, so to speak, or not have like glaring mistakes, that's just such a confidence builder moving forward. And we know that that position, like I said, is based on confidence. And if you come off, I mean, you're coming off a game like this last week, I'm excited for what he'll do in the future. Now, this wasn't in the show notes, but we're kind of speeding through this show, so we'll talk about it. He's going to have his hands full this weekend because Cam Dantzler is not going to be playing. So that means you're going to
Right.
be relying on Caleb Evans, Patrick Peterson, uh, Andrew Booth. I feel like I haven't heard Andrew Booth's name. Is he playing this week? Is he back?
Yes. He's
Yeah,
back.
he's been back. He just hasn't been getting reps. I mean, partially due to the injury, but also like again, Evans has played well.
Yeah,
And when I'm glad that they're not going off draft pedigree right now. I'm a Booth guy. You know me. I was comfortable taking Booth at 12. So or was it 12 or 14? I forget. But I think 14. I was comfortable taking him there though, right?
yeah.
So I'm a big Booth guy. But hey, you play the better player. You play the guy who's playing with more confidence right now. I don't think Booth lacks confidence by any means if you know him as a player. But again, he went through that injury. I think he's still kind of working his way through that and learning the playbook because he did miss a lot of time between preseason and the regular season this year.
But he's gonna okay. So when we talk about the
But he's
rest of
going to
the
get thrown in the fire
cornerbacks,
this week for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and against a very good wide receiver group, when you think about McKenzie, Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, obviously, and
Did
Dawson.
he ain't good.
Oh, and then I
Yeah.
mean Dawson Knox is still a capable tight end as well. Um, and they'll be trusted. I'll be curious to see how they play these running backs too, because when you think about James Cook, Singletary, Naheem Hines, who they just traded for not too long ago, a good receiving back. Um, these corners and linebackers are going to have their hands full this weekend. We talked about it, and I'll give a shout out here to the Love Boat pod from Zone Coverage Minnesota. I guessed on that pod last night, and we talked about the upcoming game on Sunday and whether or not Josh Allen plays. And I think it's a good question here to kind of fill some time, like I said, because we kind of sped through it. But um, what are your thoughts on Sunday? Do you care about the narrative around the Vikings if they win against the Josh Allenless Buffalo Bills, or are you just more concerned about racking up wins at this point?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like nobody ever talks about anybody else, I feel like. And maybe it's just we're hyper aware. Nobody ever talks about anyone else's schedule. And I mean, I guess that the Eagles are getting that a little bit right now, but like guys, we don't make the schedule. We don't make up the injuries. We have no control any of that. All we can
Mm-hmm.
control is who's in front of us at the game and how can we put our best foot forward to win that game. I don't care if it's a Patrick Mahomes. I mean, hey, we went into Patrick Mahomes building a couple years ago, and it was Matt Moore, right? I think it's Matt Moore or
Yep.
that we had to play against, and we lost, right? So it's not like this game's going to be an easy game to just go in and win. The Bills are a very capable team, like you said, one of the best rosters in the league. Now, I did look at that injury report today, and it is littered with injuries at key positions. I don't think Tre'Davious White is ready quite yet. Tremaine
Yep.
Edmonds, their stud linebacker, did not practice today. One of their stud young edge guys, Greg Russo, did not practice today. Obviously, Josh Allen did not practice today. I mean, so they're littered with some injuries right now. But again, we
Mm-hmm.
don't control that. All we can control is what we can control, which is play effective on offense, play staunch defense, continue to play excellent special teams, and create a win for ourselves one way or another.
Yes. Yes. I was just gonna. I was just sorry about the extremely white screen right now. I was just looking up some of the storylines heading to this game this week, and I want you to pick your favorite.
Okay.
Um, we got Leslie Frazier versus Minnesota, who, by the way, is maybe one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL today. So good for him. Um, Obviously, Diggs' first game versus Minnesota. You got the Case Keenum Diggs connection as well. Um, Dalvin Cook and his brother facing each other. What we heard Dalvin Cook talk a little bit about that today. And then obviously, probably the biggest one in my opinion um, is just the Jefferson Diggs debate, which these two will always be attached to each other because of the trade that sent Diggs to the Bills and allowed the Vikings to pick Justin Jefferson. But what is your favorite storyline heading into this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's going to be some sort of combination of the former team players on our team, and now that's on their team. Leslie Frazier was so long ago. I mean, that was 10 years ago, right? So even though it's interesting, and kudos to him. I mean, I couldn't be there's. I don't think I'd want a different coach to succeed more than Leslie Frazier after his tenure here. I adored him, kind of like how you adored Zim. I'm not saying that he should have kept his job or anything. I mean, it was a tough go, but I really liked him as a coach. I liked the kind of more methodical, calm presence that he brought to that position, especially after Brad Childress. I mean, that just was. Yeah, I think the more intriguing thing is the Keenum Diggs connection now on the other side of the field here, and what that potentially could bring, considering that there's a good chance that Josh Allen doesn't play this week. So I think that should be interesting. And I, again, I am kind of sick of the Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs comparison. Let them be great. I love Diggs. I still love Diggs. He's one of my favorite players in the league because he is just he works hard. He's great at his craft, and he lets his work, I mean, he does talk a lot of trash, but he lets his play do the talking. Right. Justin Jefferson's the same, right? There's no loser in this situation. There's no reason,
which is rare,
to be
very rare for an NFL team.
Yeah. And there's no reason for anyone to have ill will towards either of these guys in that situation, right? So I think it's a played out storyline, but I'm excited to just see how Diggs plays, and I'm excited to see how Justin Jefferson plays because they have a good defense. So this will be a good test for our offense to be able to produce well. And again, I know they're missing a lot of guys. Another guy I forgot to mention that's integral. They're missing both Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde right now. Poyer's did not practice this week and Hyde's out for the year. So when you factor those two things in as well, I mean, they're missing 3 of their top 4 defensive backs. If you include Tre'Davious White. So it's just, and Mary, you kind of alluded to it right there. Diggs and JJ, they have nothing but respect for each other. So it's just a complete media narrative that comes out of that. That is
what's
who
new?
cares? Let them, right? Exactly. Let them respect each other. Let them, compete and make each other better, because that's all we want to see anyway, is if iron sharpens iron, right?
When I brought up the storylines, I looked to the bottom of the screen and I see Dave drop his head and shake it. And then he shot us a message in the chat saying that we missed the biggest storyline of them all. What is it, Dave? What is the biggest storyline that we're missing? I think I know it.
This may foreshadow and be a prelude to the Super Bowl contest. It is the first one of the season where the networks can say, are we looking at 2 Super Bowl bound teams?
Did you just jinx us, Dave? I thought you were going to bring up the fact that we're both 0-4 in the Super Bowl and we might face each other.
Both fan bases empathize with each other because we're both that way. There's no real animosity between Minnesota fans and Buffalo fans. We've both been through the same grief and misfortune throughout our history, right? There's no, and if both of us make the Super Bowl, yes, one of us is going to be rejoicing and the other group will be rejoicing for their, the other team, but they'll also be consoling the one that loses because we all know what we go through. We are the 2
only
most
one can go
0-5 in NFL history, and
it'll be us, man.
But it's this could be a Super Bowl preview that we watch Sunday, especially if Josh Allen plays. So, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
that to me is the biggest possible storyline of them all. Yes, you've got all the intertying stuff, the Diggs trade, who we got out of that, Justin Jefferson, all that stuff all ties in. It's all nice. It's sugar on top. But the biggie is, are we looking at the two teams that'll meet in February?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
And it
definitely a preview potentially.
very well could be. That's
Well, hey, one other
right.
player that we forgot to talk about, Matt,
Go
that
for it.
again, I know that we don't have, we're kind of running out of time now, but another player that we forgot to talk about is TJ Hawkinson. Brand
And just
new
his
Minnesota
performance last
Viking.
week. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first opportunity has 5 days to prepare, learn the playbook. David Blau shouts to you for helping him get ready, and I know a lot of credit went his way from internally here. And the guy came in first big play of the game, 3rd and long, and he goes and delivers in on a big catch and he gets knocked too, gets hit pretty hard by that safety, and makes the big play to kind of keep that first drive going. And he made I think 9 out of 9 targets, 9 catches on 9 targets for whatever many yards it was. It was not quite 100,
70, right?
It was up
70
70
yards.
some.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's right up there, but a lot of them clutch catches, a lot of them big play moments, 3rd downs, or, get us in a really good position on, the next play. So shout out to him for learning that playbook, coming in, delivering, very strongly, and just really, I think it's going to be a great addition to this team. I think it's a missing piece that I'm not saying he was the missing piece, but a missing piece that we needed on this offense that clearly was missing, that I don't even think some of us, I mean, I know we all said we needed this, but I don't think we realized how badly we needed this until you actually saw it in action.
We talked about it last week, obviously, after the trade went down, how big of a move this was, because we have not been shy about the fact that you need somebody opposite Justin Jefferson to take some attention away from him. And obviously there was also a report, by the way, that the Vikings were, in on Brandon Cooks, right, until they came back with a high asking price. So that would have been a potential wide receiver. But we already saw what we talked about last week in the show on Sunday, and it's TJ Hawkinson's ability to be a true threat in the passing game. We saw receiver or defensive backs sort of drift towards him, knowing that they had to account for him. And I think this is perfect because it allows Adam Thielen still as well to kind of get open and do his thing as a veteran who's maybe a little bit slower, but still, technically savvy. But the biggest, point I wanted to make about TJ Hawkinson, and you've seen the plays on it. I think Kevin O'Connell talked about it in his weekly, film breakdown, but there was that play to Dalvin Cook in the end zone where Kirk, kind of gave it to Cook on I don't know if it was a wheel route, whatever, and he made that nice touchdown catch. But Jefferson took 3 defenders with him, and TJ Hawkinson took 2. If you're going to take 5 of your defensive players to cover 2 of ours, I mean, shit, good luck. I mean, I'll take that all day. And that's the threat that TJ Hawkinson brings, right? Because if TJ Hawkinson's not there, that safety drifts over and probably helps cover up Irv. And then it just probably doesn't work, or not Irv, Cook. I mean, it just probably doesn't work in the same way. And so, yes, we've already started to see TJ Hawkinson and what he can bring to this offense. And I'm just excited to continue to see it because I think, man, save this right here. He could go down as the best tight end in Minnesota history.
Well, he's got a few years to do that. But
but still.
Yeah.
If you keep
Steve
him
Jordan,
in this
for you.
Oh, he's good. Hawkinson has the potential to be really, really good. Top tier.
Especially in this
top
offense.
Of the second tier right now. But he has the potential to move into that first tier of just elite tight ends, with Kirk
Yes.
Cousins absolutely loving to throw to tight ends, and the way he can work across the intermediate. Then we can now not only send Jefferson deep, we can send Adam deep or KJ deep, and have the other one come underneath him in the middle. There is no way if you go 3 on 1 on JJ and 2 on TJ, you're committing suicide defensively, because
And wait till they draft a rookie wide receiver.
Yeah.
Then what are you going to
Marvin
do?
Mims, let's go.
Oh, man. Well, that's all I have for tonight's show. A little bit shorter.
Well, hey,
asks,
I want to
Vikings-
shout out that's badass Wood Art real quick. I was actually just looking at their website. I mean, it's not just Vikings. I mean, they got Wu-Tang on here. They got Biggie Smalls wearing a Coogee sweater, Sopranos, The Office, Tiger Woods, Mandalorian. I mean, they got everything.
You could probably do Kirk Chains. Kirko.
Anything
They probably will do a Kirk Chains. My favorite one on here, outside of all the Viking ones, is they got Stanley from The Office dribbling a basketball with his arm up. I mean, you don't get better than that. You got to check out that website. You got to go check out Lake Monster. Fantastic beer all the time.
Yes.
I can't wait to get back up there. I think we're getting together soon and heading over there, right, Matt?
Yeah, we need to. We also need to book our next live show at Lake Monster here soon. We'll answer the question that TYA Quick had here.
Yeah.
Do the Vikings get more respect if they beat the Bills without Allen, or do they get the unproven label by the national media jabronis? We kind of touched on this earlier. What'd you say, Ryan?
We'll get the unproven label because we beat a team without Josh Allen. I honestly, it would be fun to watch Josh Allen play and see how we can compare against him. But at the same time, we can't control it. We can't control if his elbow is going to be healthy or not. I don't think that they should risk playing him and risk further injury and risk their season in that situation just for another win. And that's if they can win against us with him hurt. I just think that, again, we control what we can control and we don't control injuries. So hopefully he plays so we can kind of see what we got. But if he doesn't, let's go solidify that win. And then the next litmus test will be the Cowboys.
Take the wins when you can get them. I don't give a shit about any narrative that they want to throw about our team. We're going to be potentially 8-1.
I don't. You know who loves us, by the way, is Robert Griffin III. He is just. I keep telling him, shut the hell up. We don't need all this attention. Stop trying to create attention for us. Just let us keep racking up these wins and being a quiet. And people are trying to shit on our schedule. You take a look at actually who we've beaten. There's a lot of I'm not saying they're great teams because there's obviously not a lot of great football happening, but the Bears are definitely better than anyone ever thought they were going to be. Right. Mm-hmm. Packers are probably worse. So that looks less great, but and I know we beat Miami without Tua, but that's still a good football team. We're creating wins and we're winning against, relatively high quality teams. And again, our strength of schedule is harder than the Eagles, but nobody's really talking shit on the Eagles, at least as much as they're talking on us. So let's just control what we can control and enjoy these wins while we got them.
Absolutely.
They're hard enough to get. So,
yes. Well, we're at the prediction segment, and we'll start with the guest, but I'll preface that we owe Luke some Lake Monster beer. Maybe we need to ship him some out. It's his second appearance on Vikings Happy Hour from a prediction standpoint, bailing out the host who was incredibly busy and failed to secure a prediction from a media guest. So Luke, at the last second, gave us his prediction for Sunday's game.
As some of you may well know, ZD here, not you, ZD here has never lost a prediction this year. So what do you think, buddy? Bills? He looks kind of sleepy about that. We're going to go with the Vikings. Yeah. See his nose go for that? Vikings 24-23.
Ooh. Thank you, Luke Braun. Locked on Vikings, Minnesota Sports Party. You can find him out there or on Twitter I think it's just at Luke Braun NFL. I don't think he's changed it.
At Luke Brown
Um,
NFL, yep.
So thank you for that. He's picking the Vikings to win, which, by the way, the
ZD's
spread.
picking the Vikings to win.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Which, by the way, though, the spread has shifted from 7.5 to 3.5 with all this Josh Allen news. So, Ryan, we'll go with
A
you.
week
By the
ago,
way,
it was 9.5.
it's crazy. It's crazy. If you can buy in on this stuff right now, this is in Josh Allen plays, could make some good money.
Well,
You're perfect
I told
on the
my
year.
buddy, I'm like, dude, you got to go smash that bet when it was, I think, still 7.5. I'm like, dude, go like throw 100 on it for me because I can't bet here, you know. So like, I'm like, throw 100
Take a
on it for
drive
me.
down to Iowa, man.
I'm like, that it's gonna definitely go down from here, and that's already down to 3.5. So, um, that's a good question. In terms of I'm just having a hard time differentiating if Allen plays or not. I don't think we win if
You can
Allen
do a
plays
dual
and is healthy.
scenario.
Yeah, I'd say if Allen plays and is relatively healthy, I don't think we can pull. I not that we can't pull off the win because I think we can pull it off even with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think given the loss that they just came off of interdivision opponent, maybe a lesser opponent in the Jets, and they went and lost to that. It's probably not great, right? I think the over under is 43.5. If Allen plays, I think we lose 35-27. If Allen doesn't play, I think we win 27-13.
Okay. Dave, you're not quite perfect this year because you took a sacrificial hit earlier in the year.
I'm picking the Vikings to win this one. It'll surprise everybody.
Are you?
It
Do you have a
doesn't matter who's
score?
playing quarterback. If Allen's playing, it's going to be a closer game. But I'm figuring Vikes score around 27. I'd love to see him go over 30 again, please. And it's what the defense does, and I think they'll hold them down to 20 points. So,
Okay.
if Allen plays,
Which, by the way,
I said, it's going to be a lot closer than that. But
yeah. I'm still waiting for an applause from you two because last week on this show,
oh yes, go ahead, pat yourself on the back.
Oh, don't worry, I've been doing it all week.
Oh yes, I've seen.
I nailed the Vikings prediction, the correct score, the exact sequence and how it would happen. Crickets from you two. Yep, I had to prompt you to remind you. Thank you. We'll see if I can strike twice here.
Lion squirrel finds a nut every now and then.
I said this prediction when I was guesting on that pod last night, the Love Boat pod, and I'll stick with it, even though it's a little outlandish. I said I would bet the over if I could bet on this game, and I feel a Vikings Rams game from 2019 in the DeFlippo era when it was just a shootout back and forth all night. I don't care who's playing at quarterback. The Bills are stacked, and I think the Vikings offense gets unleashed this weekend. I have the Vikings winning 38-30 in Buffalo on Sunday, which, by the way, we'll see, Dave. We'll see. I'll be in a suite, so maybe I can join you on the final score briefly. Depends if we win or not. But yes, that's what I'm going with. 38-30 Vikings victory. Put these people in your FanDuel lineups. Put these players in your fantasy lineups.
I'm changing my score to 28-19. 28-19. I got to get one of these correct.
28-19. So with that being said, that's all we have for tonight. Ryan already gave the shout outs again to the sponsors. For everybody that joined us tonight in the chat, thank you very much. We appreciate your comments and your camaraderie every single week. Make sure you come back next week. Maybe the Vikings are 8-1, maybe they're 7-2, but regardless, it'll be a full crew on this show, including special guest Ben Gessling of the Star Tribune will be joining us to talk about how the Vikings are doing this season. So we look forward to that. Otherwise, Dave, tell the people what we got.
We have ahead, you got myself and Darren, 2 bloggers on Saturday. The final score after the game, and the game is national, over 90% of the country, 85% of the country is getting it national at noon, which is wonderful. It's national broadcast. We have the final score. Hopefully Matt can join us from the suite in Buffalo. And down here in Texas, it'll be me and Jason Brown in the same room at the same table. And we'll be bringing you the final 2 minutes of hopefully our 8th victory of the season.
Let's go.
What do we say, guys?
That's what I'm talking. We say Skol
Vikings.
Skol Vikings! Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and feel free to rate us on your favorite aggregator. A big shout out goes to our partners, The Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found. To That's Badass Wood Art, when you're looking for something unique to brighten your space. And to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody!